Chapter 4, page 36. Far away on the opposite spiral arm of the galaxy, 500,000 light-years away from the star, Sol, Zaphoid Beeblebrox, president of the Imperial Galactic Government, sped across the seas of Demigron, his ion-drive delta boat winking and flashing at the Demigron sun. Demigron the hot, Demigron the remote, Demigron the almost totally unheard of, Demigron's secret home of the Heart of Gold. The boat sped across in the water. It would be the same time before it reached its destination because Demigron is such an inconveniently arranged planet. It consists of nothing but middling to large desert islands separated by very pretty but annoyingly wide stretches of ocean. Because of this topographical awkwardness, Demigron has always remained a deserted planet. This is why the Imperial Galactic Government chose Demigron for the Heart of Gold project, because it was so deserted and the Heart of Gold project was so secret. The boats zipped and skipped across the sea that lay between the main islands of the only archipelago, I'm gonna guess on that, of a useful size in the whole planet. Zaphoid Beeblebrox was on his way from the tiny spacecraft on Easter Island. The name was an entirely meaningless coincidence. In galactic speak, Easter means small, flat, and light brown, to the Heart of Gold Island, which was another meaningless coincidence and was called France. One of the side effects of work on the Heart of Gold was a whole string of pretty meaningless coincidences. But it was not in any way a coincidence that day. The day of culmination of the project, the great day of unveiling, the day the Heart of Gold was finally to be introduced into a marveling galaxy, was also a great day of culmination for Zaphoid Beeblebrox. It was for the sake of this day that he had first decided to run for the presidency, a decision that had sent shockwaves of astonishment through the Imperial Galaxy. Zaphoid Beeblebrox? President? Not the Zaphoid Beeblebrox, not the president. Many had seen it as a clinching proof the whole of known creation had finally gone bananas. Zaphoid grinned and gave the boat an extra kick of speed. Zaphoid Beeblebrox, adventurer, ex-hippie, good-timer, crook, quite possibly, manic self-publicist, terribly bad at personal relationships, often thought to be completely out to lunch. President? No one had gone bananas, not in that way in the least. Only 6 people in the entire galaxy understood the principle in which the galaxy was governed, and they knew that once Zaphoid Beeblebrox had announced his intention to run as president, it was more or less a faint acolyte. He was an ideal presidency fodder. What they completely failed to understand was why Zaphoid was doing it. He banked sharply, shooting a wild wall of water at the sun. Today was the day when they would realize what Zaphoid had been up to. Today was what Zaphoid Beeblebrox's presidency was all about. Today was also his 200th birthday, but that was just another meaningless coincidence. As he had skipped his boat across the seas of Demigron, he smiled quietly to himself about what a wonderful, exciting day it was going to be. He relaxed and spread his 2 arms lazily along the seat back. He steered with an extra arm he had recently been fitted with just beneath his right one to help improve his ski boxing. Hey, he cooed to himself, you're a real cool boy, you, but his nerves sang a song shriller than a dog whistle. The island of France was about 20 miles long, 5 miles across the middle, sandy and crescent-shaped. In fact, it seemed to exist not so much as an island on its own right, as simply a means of defining the sweep and curve of a huge bay. This impression was heightened by the fact the inner coastline of the crescent consisted almost entirely of steep cliffs. On the top of the cliff, the land sloped slowly down 5 miles to the opposite shore. On top of the cliff stood a reception committee. It consisted in large part of the engineers and researchers who built the Heart of Gold, mostly humanoid, but here and there was a few reptiloid atomineers, 2 or 3 green scythe-like Maxima Galacticians, an octopodic physistructuralist or 2, and a hula-voo. A hula-voo is a super-intelligent shade of the color blue. All except the hula-voo were resplendent in their multicolored ceremonial lab coats. The hula-voo had been temporarily refracted into a freestanding prism for the occasion. There was a mood of immense excitement thrilling through all of them. Together and between them, they had gone to and beyond the furthest limits of physical laws, restructured the fundamental fabrics of matter, strained, twisted, and broken the laws of possibility and impossibility. But still the greatest excitement of all seemed to be to meet a man who was with an orange sash around his neck. An orange sash was what the president of the galaxy traditionally wore. It might not have been much of a difference to them if they had known exactly how much power the president of the galaxy actually wielded. Not at all. Only 6 people in the galaxy knew that the job of the galactic president was not to wield power but to attract attention away from it. Zaphoid Beeblebrox was amazingly good at his job. The crowd gasped, dazzled by sun and seamanship, and the presidential speedboat zipped around his headland into the bay. It flashed and shone as it came skating over the sea in wide skimming turns. In fact, it didn't need to touch the water at all because it was supported on a hazy cushion of ionized atoms, but just for effect, it was fitted with fin blades, which could be lowered into the water. They slashed sheets of water hissing into the air, carved deep gashes into the sea, which swayed crazily and sank back, foaming into the boat's wake as it careered across the bay. Zaphoid loved effect. It was what he was best at. He twisted the wheel sharply, the boat skidded round in a wild, scathing skid beneath the cliff face and dropped to a rest lightly on the rocking waves. Within seconds, he ran out into the deck and waved and grinned over 3 billion people. The 3 billion people weren't actually there, but they watched his every gesture through the eyes of a small robot Tri-D camera, which hovered obsequiously in the air nearby. The antics of the president always made amazingly popular Tri-D. That's what they were there for. He grinned again. 3,006 people didn't know it, but today would be a bigger antic than anyone had bargained for. The robot camera homed in for a close-up on the more popular of his 2 heads, and he waved again. He was roughly humanoid in appearance except for the extra head and third arm. His fair, tousled hair stuck out in random directions, his blue eyes glinted with something completely unidentifiable, and his chins were almost always unshaven. A 20-foot-high transparent globe floated next to his boat, rolling and bobbing, glistening in the brilliant sun. Inside it floated a wide, semicircular sofa, upholstered in glorious red leather. The more the globe bobbed and rolled, the more the sofa stayed perfectly still, steady as an upholstered rock. Again, all done for effect as much as anything. Zaphoid stepped through the wall of the globe and relaxed on the sofa. He spread his 2 arms along his back and with the third brushed some dust off his knee. His head looked about, smiling. He put his feet up. At any moment, he thought, he might scream. Water boiled up beneath the bubble. It seethed and spouted. The bubble surged into the air, bobbing and rolling on the waterspout. Up it climbed, throwing stilts of light at the cliff. Up it surged on the jet, the water falling beneath it, crashing back into a sea of 100 feet below. Zaphoid smiled, picturing himself. A thoroughly ridiculous form of transport, but a thoroughly beautiful one. At the top of the cliff, the globe wavered for a moment, tipped into a railed ramp, rolled down to a small concave platform, and riddled to a halt. To tremendous applause, Zaphoid Beeblebrox stepped out of the bubble, his orange sash blazing in the light. The president of the galaxy had arrived. He waited for the applause to die down, and then raised his hand in greeting. "Hi," he said. A government spider sidled up to him and attempted to press a copy of his prepared speech into his hands. Pages 3 to 7 of the original version were at the moment floating soggily in the Demogron Sea some 5 miles out from the bay. Pages 1 and 2 had been salvaged by a Demogron frond-crested eagle and had already become incorporated into an extraordinary new form of nest which the eagle had invented. It was constructed largely of papier-mâché and was virtually impossible for a newly hatched baby eagle to break out of it. Demogron frond-crested eagle had heard of the notion of survival of the species, but wanted no truck with it. Zaphoid Beeblebrox would not be needing his set of speech, and he gently deflected the one being offered him by the spider. "Hi," he said again. Everyone beamed at him, or at least nearly everyone. He singled out Trillian from the crowd. Trillian was a girl that Zaphoid had picked up recently while visiting the planet, just for fun, incognito. She was slim, darkish, humanoid with long waves of black hair, a full mouth, and an odd little knob of a nose and ridiculously brown eyes. With her red headscarf knotted in that particular way, her long, flowing, silky brown dress, she looked vaguely Arabic. Not that anyone had ever heard of an Arab, of course. The Arabs had been recently ceased to exist, and even when they existed, there was 500,000 light years from Demogron. Trillian wasn't anybody in particular, and so Zaphoid claimed. She just went around with him rather a lot and told him what she thought of him. "Hi, honey," he said to her. She flashed him a quick, tight smile and looked away. Then she looked back for a moment and smiled more warmly, but by this time he was looking at something else. "Hi," he said to a small knot of creatures from the press who were standing nearby, wishing that he would stop saying hi and get on with the quotes. He grinned at them particularly because he knew that in a few moments he would be giving them one heck of a quote. The next thing he said, though, was not a lot of use to them. One of the officials of the party had irritably decided the president was clearly not in a mood to read the deliciously turned speech that had been written for him and had flipped the switch on the remote control device in his pocket. Away in front of them was a huge white dome that bulged across the sky, cracked down the middle, split and slowly folded itself into the ground. Everyone gasped, although they had known perfectly well that it was going to do that, because they built it that way. Beneath it lay uncovered a huge starship, 150 meters long, shaped like a sleek running shoe, perfectly white and mind-bogglingly beautiful. At the heart of it, unseen, lay a small gold box, which carried within it the most brain-wrenching device ever conceived, a device that made this starship unique in the history of the galaxy, a device after which the ship had been named the Heart of Gold. "Wow," said Zaphoid Beeblebrox to the Heart of Gold. There wasn't much else he could say. He said it again because he knew it would annoy the press. "Wow." The crowd turned their faces back toward him expectantly. He winked at Trillian, who raised her eyebrows and widened her eyes at him. She knew what he was about to say, and thought him a terrible show-off. "That really is truly amazing. That is so amazingly amazing, I think I'd like to steal it. A marvelous presidential quote, absolutely true to form. The crowd laughed appreciatively, the newsmen gleefully punched buttons on their sub-Ethan newsmatics, and the president grinned. As he grinned, his heart screamed unbearably, and he fingered the small paralyzmatic bomb that nestled quietly in his pocket. Finally, he could bear it no more. He lifted his heads up to the sky, let out a wild whoop in major thirds, threw the bomb to the ground, and ran forward through the sea of suddenly frozen, beaming smiles. End of chapter 4.